political process, and that of what is happening in Kenya right now. But then, what is the stake of other African countries in our own elections as we look forward to it? And of course, we have Mr. Sumbo Barijoko with us in the studios this morning. He's a public affairs analyst. It's great to have you here, sir. Good morning.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Once again.
All right. Looking at the space, our political space, and how much more other African countries are interested, do you think they have a stake in Nigeria's election?
They don't have a stake. I won't accept that.
Okay.
But they would be interested because Nigeria is the biggest country in Africa, if I may use that word. And whoever the president would be, or the personality alone, the office of the Nigerian president, as far as the Committee of Nations is concerned within the African sub-region and even the West African sub-region, Nigeria is a big country. If you were following the news, definitely you will. I think during the last week, there was this headline that Nigeria threatens to pull out of ECOWAS. If that happens, for instance, it's going to affect ECOWAS. ECOWAS may likely go into extinction because even the idea of ECOWAS was Nigeria's making. Even when the Organization of African Unity was being formed back then, Nigeria played a significant role. And of course, we've been playing this big brother role within the African context. So, even during the military, we're not taking the back seats. So, whoever becomes Nigerian president would be someone that other nations in Africa would be interested in. And that means that they will have to focus on our elections. Not that their democracy is superior to ours, but because they would want to follow the process through and know who would become, who will really not turn his back against the African neighbors or African brothers among those who are contesting. So those are their interests.
Do we have some mischievous individuals among our political space? Let's look at what Akufo-Addo has said. As a matter of fact, actually saying that particular statement credited to him, that he had written to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress that he should shelve his presidential ambition and support and put his campaign trail and support Peter Obi, that he never wrote that. And of course, he never said that, and he doesn't want to interfere in the politics and internal affairs of Nigeria, as a matter of fact. Now, what do you think that could emanate from? Do you see desperate individuals who are trying as much as possible to also to lobby the other African countries towards their side at these elections itself? And now, I asked about the stake. Why is it that they are gunning for even the neighboring countries now? At the end of the day, if an Akufo-Addo, for instance, what would have been his interest in the Nigerian election process if he had to come out to discredit all of this?
Ghana, as far as democracy is concerned, is one of the leading countries in Africa democratically. And of course, whoever the president of Ghana is, we think within the democratic space in Africa would have some bit of recognition.
Is that not spiting Nigeria? That means we are not anywhere when it comes to our democracy. Ghana is better than us.
I'm going there. No, they became fully democratized before us.
When you say fully democratized, what do you mean?
All these nations at one point in time passed through military rule. And Ghana was ahead of Nigeria in terms of returning back to full civilian. They've sustained it ever since the civilian administration of Jerry Rawlings. They've been successive transition, opposition are taking over, another party has come in. So they are ahead in that wise, conducting successive elections without much leadership crisis. Like we've had if you compare that to what we had in, Cote d'Ivoire, or Kenya, or Zimbabwe, all those places, there are democratic crisis, political crisis, even of recent in Uganda. So but you don't have much of that playing out in Ghana, probably due to their law. They know the candidate like a year and a half ahead of the election. So whatever feud or squabbles that they want to settle politically would have been done before the election proper. So, and I think we little bit borrow some idea from in the new electoral act, and that we are knowing our candidates way ahead of the elections now, which is going to help the election, though our local politicians are not used to that. And that's why even when campaign have not started, you saw them throwing jabs at each other. And it's part of the jab that has led to this indictment on the Ghanaian president. Because if you'll ask me, we have mischief makers among those who are campaigning for these candidates. And if the allegation is about President Akufo-Addo is writing to Asiwaju to step down for Peter Obi, then you don't need any magician or any prophet to tell you that that would have emanated from Peter Obi's camp. Of course, they will not own up. But the thing is, the man has come to deny. Then how did the information leak? When I saw the news myself, I was just laughing. I said, this is nothing but fake. Because I know that the Ghanaian president, if he's going to even have an alliance with any of them, it's going to be the same man that they are asking me, that they are claiming is writing to. That's even the reason why they are saying he's writing to him, because why did he not write that to Atiku? Or is Atiku not in the race? So that's the thing, you know. It's and at this point, I will just appeal to these leading candidates to address their followers.
Now let's look at Nigerian structure, and of course, it's quite touching when you actually said, when you look at our democratic setting in Nigeria, we have not done too well in terms of democratic development because we have military incursion here and there. But let's go back a little bit history, like the likes of the head of the Western region, talking about Akintola then, and of course we saw, as a matter of fact, that they tried as much as possible to also breed a political future that is sustainable by having their children in schools abroad. Let's take, for instance, the Eton College in the UK had Tokumbo Akintola at a point in time, who never survived because they looked at him like the future of the Western Nigeria, to actually come back to rule and of course prepare him for leadership by sending him as the first black child, as at that time, going to that school. It's a royal school. And of course later on we had an Oyema whose father was more or less like a judge or a lawyer, to say in that particular school, just preparing them for the future of Nigeria. They took them to that royal school and they appear to be first blacks, although that has been a controversial issue as to maybe Akintola was the first person there or Yema was there. And of course the issue of culture played out. Now some Southwesterners are saying that no, it's Akintola, but some of the Easterners are saying he never finished. This is Oyema, who came in after 2 terms of Akintola then. That's the young Tokumbo Akintola, who as a result of leukemia, from what we're hearing, died, and he couldn't finish his studies, and his father too was killed in the process. Now let's look at how much more our political leadership right from the outset was trying as much as possible to position a future for the country, and what we have at the end of the day never worked out for them. And now we are in a kind of setting where we are all running and do not even understand how we get it right. Now, would we go back to history and say that there's something missing along the line? We weren't indigenous enough? Would we say that we weren't indigenous enough because it took them to go to a British school that never recognized blacks? And of course, Onyema came up with a book to say he was maltreated. He had huge racism against him. And of course, Eton College has apologized after several years, and they're trying to bring him back to the school. Did we get it wrong in terms of actually positioning ourselves for future in terms of democracy? How did we get to this point that we are not leading Africa, that we have a Ghana that appears more democratic than Nigeria? What exactly do you think we got wrong as a nation?
The only thing we've got wrong all along has been leadership. And back to your submission on, I don't think the intention was to prepare them for what is it called?
But that's what we looked at. No, that's what we read.
That wasn't the intention. As at that time, how many universities do we have in Nigeria that are universities? Only the University of Ibadan. Others were just being built, and these are already children who were at that university age, and their parents haven't been educated themselves. Wants to ensure that at least their children had the best of education. And those were among the options that they had. So we can't begin to say they sent them to those schools because and it helps them. If you look at those our first generation leaders, they speak British English, Queen's English.
How does it help us as a nation? Has it brought us out of any problem?
Because of the schools they went to. They all schooled abroad. Not deliberately, but because back home there were not enough options.
Whose fault is that? Is that not why we have a leadership problem?
Colonial rule. We can't put the blame of the situation at that time on the First Republic leaders. We can even begin to say that they are just Nigerians were the military were too hasty with them. They didn't allow the democratic process to mature like countries like Kenya and Senegal enjoyed. You understand? These are countries that have never been ruled by the military, mind you. They enjoyed that. But Nigeria, you know, the initial idea of the British colonial government was to, you know, create a very robust African state that would take leadership role, and that was the destiny of Nigeria. But along the line, that military incursion, and that's why some of us would never forgive those who planned the 1966 coup, because it was just a needless and a useless coup. All the things that they gave as excuse for the coup were later practiced by them, which means it's more of a Nigerian thing, which means we should have really looked at the ballots. Yes, Western region was boiling, but that was more of an internal thing. The other regions were not boiling. So these are things that has caused problem for us. Those people were in their approaching their primes as at that time, in their 40s, and new generations were already coming up behind them. There would have been that, you know, if you had survived that succession period, probably wouldn't have had any military incursion. And of course, military incursion came to institutionalize corruption. And that is what we are battling with now.
Is Kenya not faced with corruption in spite of the fact that they never had military incursion? Is it not an African thing that we need to deal with?
Kenya is not as endowed as Nigeria. Kenya is not as endowed as Nigeria. And if you follow the history of that country, even till date, you will discover that with the little they have, they've been able to manage it effectively.
Is our endowment now the source of our crisis, or is it playing a major role?
Leadership is our crisis because bad leadership gave us corruption. That's why, despite our endowment as a nation, we have not been able to fully harness the potentials that we have. So, we are not supposed to be at this level. For instance, with the global crisis now, Nigeria is supposed to be making millions and trillions of naira as surplus with the crisis. But the leadership situation has not, has created an environment that is not endowed or not ready to take advantage of such benefits. How many times have OPEC increased our quota, yet we are not meeting up with that quota? That would have been more money for the government to do so many other things. Now, infrastructure that this government is trying to build now, if they had been on ground way before they came, and they are now here, they will focus on other things. ASU would never have been on strike. ASU was on strike because of years of decadence and neglect of the university system.
Now let's look at the fact that we're borrowing so much money now.
We are not even supposed to be borrowing because we would have been making enough money. We wouldn't even having reserve. So all these things, we are more endowed than Kenya. So if Kenya is well organized, that means it's a shame of our leadership.
So we should drop the big brother clothes we've been putting on the big brother crown we've been wearing a long time. Do we need to drop it and face the reality?
It's already falling off us.
Oh, by itself?
Yes, it's just the past glory that... Do you know when Professor Saga has written the book, The Crippled Giant? That our so-called giant of Africa is now crippled.
And so it keeps getting worse.
And it keeps getting... You know, he wrote that book in the 90s. And we are still referencing it now. The situation has even gotten worse than it was.
Let's even look at our currency. Looking at, a lot of African countries, so-called, small players in the African, setup, seem to have, their currency seem to have more value than our naira.
Well, not all of them. Let's not.
No, I didn't say all. I said so many.
Yeah, so many that we used to be ahead of, like the Ghanaian cedis and what have you. But the thing is, when you don't have currency strength is determined by your balance of trade. When the import is above the export, you will surely have a struggling currency.
All right, Mr. Sumbo, let me just alert our audience out there that we have the numbers right on the screen, and do remember that you have to turn down the audio level of your TV set once you're calling into the program. You tell us your name and the location where you're calling from, and of course we'll make it as snappy as possible because our time is fast spent. All right, please go ahead.
So, when the situation, for instance, for a very long time, the only major product we export is the crude oil. Now, incidentally, we also now import byproduct of this crude oil because we are not processing it, the value chain, locally. And anything that you are selling out that doesn't have much of local content will not be, the value in the international markets will not be that much. So these are things working against our currency. And of course, our not patronizing our local thing. She started up with the issue of education. And I said back then, the intention was wrong. But now we have enough options locally. But we still send our children abroad. And they will pay school fees in foreign currency, which will be demanded from the reserve in the CBN.
All right, you mentioned something about leadership being one of our major problems, if not the major one.
It is.
Now, let's look at the process that produces these leaders. Do you think the process is the problem is with the process, or it's the structure of the country itself in terms of constitution and all that guides us?
Well, prior to this, the signing of this new act, the process had not been perfect. And of course, the structure is a major problem, because the structure is in such a way that anyone with even good intention getting there, if he does not tamper with the structure right from the start, the structure is going to work against him. And that's a problem that some leaders have had. And that's why, whether he believes it or not, whether his supporters like it or not, I personally have not forgiven the former president.
Okay, let's take this, Mr. Sumbo. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, please. What's the name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Honorable Boko.
All right, please go ahead, Mr. Boko.
I'm calling from Abakaliki, Ebonyi State.
All right, go ahead, Honorable.
With the Nigeria election, the stake for Africa, we should be more concerned about our domestic stability than what will happen to Africa and Africa. We have a big problem in this country that we need to tackle, and God has presented us an opportunity with the election coming up in 2023. As for me, I see nothing wrong with Oshoefo, but whichever way they want to do it, as long as INEC has a server that will receive this result being transmitted, I am comfortable with it. Let Nigerians go and decide their fate in 2023. As for Africa, let us deal with our own domestic problem first before we talk about what will happen to Africa. God bless you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for calling.
Boko, for your contributions there. Okay?
Mr. Sumbo, you were making a point before the call came in. You were talking about leadership process and structure.
Yeah, but for the structure now, the last thing I said was I will always hold President Obasanjo responsible for leaving the structure the way he met it. Why? Between 1999 and 2003, that was the first dispensation of the current Fourth Republic. Now, he had a naive National Assembly who had to be sent abroad for training on the legislative process. And we are aware that the Constitution is defective. Now, you already have it as a document. The next thing to do is to look at the defective area with a team of lawyers within the judiciary and suggest amendments to that naive National Assembly. using the instrument of lobbying and what have you, which is part of democracy, to reamend those structure. But no, they look at it, no, we want to enjoy it like the way it was. Now they left office and we're now criticizing the same document they used. You understand? When these past leaders make statements like, with all due respect, Chief Afe Babalola, who was the federal government lawyer then, coming to say that this constitution should be suspended.
It should be interim national government.
I was like, but you guys were there.
You had the opportunity
It is not a different document that this man is using. It is the same that you used. Why did you not do those things when you were there?
Oh, Mr. Sumbo, we have to go. We have to go. But what is the signals that Nigeria is sending to other African nations here in terms of our election? What is the signal? Is it a good signal already from what we're seeing?
It's a good signal as far as I'm concerned. It's because we are here. The local press in those other countries are in the best position to tell us the full details of the intrigues that also precede their own election. The only thing we see is that the election is holding in Kenya now, counting is on, they are going to a second election. But the build up to that process, the locals will be in the best position to see. And we are locals here. We are knowing that whatever is happening here is not unique to us, it's not peculiar to us, it's part of the game.
Are we opening up opportunities for business, for instance, after 2023 elections? Do you see us in that light? Especially within Africa, apart from the AFCTA here?
Well, the next president, like I said in one of the previous episodes, is not going to enjoy the kind of honeymoon that Buhari enjoyed. And that's why we need to look at the options critically and put the person that will hit the ground running in there. Because Nigerians will not be patient with the next president. Why? Things have been so deteriorated. And it's not a matter of just rhetorics. It's a matter of having the right team right from day one and you hit the ground running. If you don't have someone that can build a team and you just put somebody that will now be borrowing, you don't win a war with borrowed soldiers. And the next president is going to fight a war.
All right, we must say a big thank you to Mr. Sumbo Badijoke, and of course it's quite instructive what you said this morning, that Nigerians are not patient any longer to actually have one that want to test the waters when they get there. And on that note, we must say a big thank you for your time on the program this morning. We'll take this break. Yes, once we come back, we'll have our last guest on the program. Please do stay with us.